Good morning. It's Friday, and on Finance Friday, I know you're thinking it's 7 a.m. Sarah, go to bed. But guess what? I get to facilitate one of my clients in doing strategic planning and really thinking about how to they not only double their business but triple their business, and what are the things that we need in place today to make that happen. So I'm going to spend most of the day with those clients, so I have to join you super early on Finance Friday. But I wanted to let you know that next Wednesday at 11 o'clock we are going to do a free webinar, Budgeting Made Simple. And what we're going to focus on there is really three key things. So creating buy-in. So budgeting season is like, for anybody outside, well, probably inside the finance team, but for lots of people, there's some angst around it because one, it's a lot of work. Two, nobody's got time to do more work. And three, what does it matter? What does the budget matter? And I want to tell you why it matters. Budgeting and taking the time to think about your future matters in a multitude of ways. And one is putting numbers to a piece of paper so that you know what your goals are and what you're striving for, whether that's increased sales, so then you need increased support and increased salespeople or whatever that is. Or maybe you want to do a process differently and you've been struggling to fill jobs, so therefore you want to invest in some automated process and thinking that. So budgeting just kind of it lets us take a moment to stop and think about the future. Now, if we just continue to run through our day-to-day and be busy and not stop to think about the future, then we're just gonna be running around, which is fine too. You can do that, and I do that most often. But taking a minute to stop and think, and really, what does this future year look like? That's what budgeting is about. It's not about the numbers. It's not about getting it exactly right. It's about taking the time to think about what does the future hold for me, my team, my organization, and how can I put some thought to that numbers behind it. It doesn't have to be accurate or super accurate. The other thing that's helpful for is it gives the warm and fuzzies to the banks and all the people who are partnering with you as a business owner, so that they know you've taken the time to stop and think about what you actually are going to do in the next year. So budgeting is great. Why do you want to create buy-in throughout your organization though? And that's just a change management thing. So creating buy-in and having other people participate in the process is super important for them to own it and to feel valued. So making sure that it's not just your high-level accountant or whoever's in that position that just does the budget and everybody accepts it. That's not how it should be done. It should be an enjoyable process from every level of the organization. If you are in charge of a division, you should have input into what your next year's numbers look like, especially if you're being held accountable to those numbers. So making sure that you have buy-in throughout the organization is also super important. The next one is knowing your role and your skills and abilities. So some people are super unfamiliar. So lots of budgets are done in Excel. Even big business in our community, they do their budgets in Excel just because the budgeting software that they've been able to find hasn't been able to do the trick. So some of them use software. And if you use budgeting specific software, there is no reason that you should think that most of the managers in the organization are going to be familiar with that software. So we need to be realistic about if we're asking somebody to invest time into doing this process, what does that look like so that they don't get frustrated and annoyed with the process. So whether that's one-on-one sitting down and going through the numbers and hashing it out, or you provide information, they review it, and then you meet, or you provide information, they're really strong in this because they've been doing it for 10 years and they just give you information back. However that looks, knowing that it's situational and that every person that you interact with, if you're on the accounting side working with the people on the operations side on the budget, knowing that they're all at different skill sets and different levels of technology awareness and all the things. And then also on the if you're on the operations side working with finance on what that budget looks like, giving them some grace that they don't necessarily always think like you. They might think differently. So getting to common ground and understanding or asking questions like, okay, I need clarity in this space, or I need clarity on what actually went into this account in the prior years, especially if you're new and you haven't been reviewing financials for a long time. What went into that? So making sure that you know your abilities and your skills and your roles in that budgeting process. And then the third one is don't get lost in the details so that you forget the big picture. The big picture about what the budgeting process is about taking time to plan for your future. And it doesn't, if you're off, pennies, if you're off dollars, if you're even off thousands of dollars in your large organization, it's not going to make that big of a difference, because there's going to be ebbs and flows and things that you can't predict anyway. The point of it is to get as close as you can and to take time to stop and think about your future. That's the point of it. It's not about, you don't get a gold star if your budget is 100% on. And if anybody has ever done that, I would love to know that you budgeted and it was right on. You predicted the future basically, which is nearly impossible. But the point is, we still want to go through the work so that we have a guide rail. It's kind of like drawing in architecture or construction. It's like actually using the drawing to build the building. And then we know in construction, sometimes we have to make in the field decisions on how things work, but we have a drawing to go off of. So take some time this fall. I can't believe it's going to be September next week. That's just crazy. Take some time to think about, what does 2022 look like for our organization? We've already lived through the craziest times in business, so we know that it can be very different than what we anticipated, but that's okay, and you guys know that you can make it through it. So keep those things in mind. If you want to know more, we're going to do an hour-long budget made simple webinar next week. So go ahead and check out our Facebook page and join us for that. We'll see you soon.